that's, I mean, the fact that he allowed me to be in here, I was like, sweet, man. I mean, that's, I took it for what it was, man, and that's, it's an opportunity, man.
For sure.
I definitely appreciate that promo. We might be going live right now. And we are. Hello, everybody. sPidA here once again. The Fight Card Podcast coming to you from San Antonio, Texas. Of course, we are downtown, man. And today, man, I actually have a guest in Kirk Hubble. How are you, man?
No, doing good, man.
Man, I appreciate you. I know we tried to make this happen last week, and of course, I mean, timing. You weren't able to come, but the fact that you showed up today, man, I really appreciate you. You are out of Corpus Christi, Texas, correct?
Yes, sir, Corpus.
Now, we were talking earlier, man, and when I met you, of course, it was through the fight game. I believe I saw you fighting. When I first saw of you, it was you were fighting for Rock's promotion.
Okay.
You fought here in San Antonio.
I don't think I fought in San Antonio. I've had several fighters fight up here.
I was going to say, because I know I've seen you.
David Waters. I had some of my amateur guys fight up here. So
there you
we
go, man.
Up here a lot.
Now, when we talked about a little bit about your upbringing into the sport, man. Now, you were telling me earlier, man, as far as being an athlete, I mean, you were baseball.
Oh,
that was your forte.
Die hard.
And how did that start, man? I mean, as a kid, or how did you get into baseball?
I was obsessed with it. In reality, that was my sport growing up. I lived, ate, slept, dreamed baseball. I mean,
was that because of like that, or I mean?
Yeah, my dad was a major influence for sure. Whole family is kind of a baseball family. We did everything from. I mean, we have a baseball card collection you wouldn't believe.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
That's how obsessed we were. But yeah, that was my dream since I could swing a bat.
Man,
I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
And now, did you grow up here in Texas?
I grew up I was born in El Paso.
Okay.
And then we moved to Corpus probably when I was about 3.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, most part grew up there until I went off to college.
Now, baseball was what took you, I mean, as far as your scholarship, right, you were saying?
Absolutely.
And how did that work? I mean, was it basically like you keep playing for us and we'll pay your way, or?
Yeah, I got a full ride to Northeast Texas.
Okay.
Is a junior college conference up there, and it's the same conference. At the time, there was a North and South conference. Same conference that included, like our South conference was like San Jacinto, Galveston, Alvin, all these places like that. Ours included like Texarkana, and we played a lot of. It's the only conference in the nation that if you win the conference tournament, you go straight to the nationals.
Oh, nice.
National tournament, just because we're so loaded. I mean. We played against guys like Hunter Pence, a lot of pros, guys that really had a lot of success came out of that conference. So
damn. So there was a lot of high hopes, huh?
Oh,
it was. There, man.
My freshman year, I think we were the number 1 or number 2 ranked recruiting class in the nation.
Damn.
So I mean, we were loaded, that's for sure.
And what happened during that time that you stopped playing?
I had. Just a whole lot of nothing, really. I was going to school and just didn't have a focus, kind of lost a little bit of identity because baseball, my routine was just shot in the foot. I didn't have anything to do, so it took a little while until, like we were talking earlier, I met Phil Greathouse, and and he brought me into the fold in that, and I got introduced to Robert Villegas.
Right.
And it kind of went from there.
Man, you see, and I mean, the fact, I mean, you grew up in Corpus, I mean, basically, right? I mean, since 3 years of age. I myself, I mean, back when I started competing was in 2000, 2001, 2002. I know they used to have the Battle at the Beach.
Yep.
And that's the first time I had met Robert Villegas, man. Cause that guy was a stud, man. Like, I saw him, and I'm like, dude, this guy must be an actor, man, because he was a man. But he actually went all the way to the main event. They had like it was like a tournament style, and he fought at the main event. He fought one of my teammates, and got that submission ankle, man. But yeah, I mean, that wasn't the last time I saw him, because I did follow his career after that. But I mean, even then, I always talk to people, man, because back when we were training and competing, and mostly like the Valley. I mean, we used to go out there for a talent challenge. We used to go to a couple of Total Combat, I think it was back in the day. And a lot of the fighters from South Texas, mostly like Mission and everywhere else, they were mostly like boxers, man. They were stand-up fighters, and that's kind of where we were more grapplers than anything. I mean, we used to do MMA and practice striking and whatnot. But that's kind of like we go out there and take everybody down and submit them, and then of course, times have changed, man. Corpus have changed, Corpus has been buzzing as of late, man, and guys like you, your gym, a couple of, more than, I would say like 5 gyms out there right now producing. When you stopped competing, we had brought this up earlier, man, you had back injuries.
Oh, yeah.
And were those from, like, growing up, baseball, everything else?
I would say a lot of it's, there's probably a lot of stress that happens swinging a bat. I was a switch hitter, so, you're talking about reps on reps. I was obsessed, so I trained day and night. People would make fun of me in high school because I'd go home and train. I'd be up till 10, 11 p.m., and my parents would have to call me in because I'd outside hitting off a tee.
Damn.
But I was also, I got into, I'd say late in high school, but kind of when I got into college, and where we were located was out in the middle of nowhere to a large degree.
Yeah.
And so all I had time to do was play baseball, go to school, and lift weights.
And that was okay. You were okay with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I got obsessed with weightlifting, and I had a lot of back injuries and things developed with that because I was always big into the power lifts. I squatted a ton in high school, being the shrimp I was at the time.
Right.
And so it was just something that I probably did too much of because I was good at it, and I loved doing it. And there was times where, I knew I'd probably slipped a disc. My back would put me down for a few days, and it just and I never really made the adjustments or learned from it really. And then one day playing baseball, with Wood Bat League, I took a hack on a ball and I took off running from the batter's box, and I felt like somebody shot me in the butt. Like my hamstring popped. It was something, and I never pulled a hamstring, so I thought maybe that was it. And I got down to first base, and I remember signaling like, "Hey, I need a pinch runner. I can't do this."
Yeah.
And my leg wasn't really working. I had to and we were on the far side dugout, so I had to hop back over there. And it's been an adventure, to say the least, with my back.
No, you're saying you're still having issues right now.
Oh yeah, it's kind of ever going. The more I take care of it, the better it is usually.
Right.
It's not that I can pick somebody up and throw somebody.
Right.
But if I bend over to pick up a pen, that's when my back's going to go out.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, and of course, we're not getting any younger men. Of course, our body.
For sure.
And by no means am I an athlete, but I always tell people, man, it's when I go home and stretch or yawn that I'm like, oh crap, my shoulder or something, because
feel it.
Yeah, and especially at these age, man. I used to compete, not at your level or anybody else's level, but I used to compete, and I was obsessed with it. The first day I went, got my ass kicked, for probably the first 2-3 months, man.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
It was the fact that I was just like, man, I got to get better, and before I knew it, man, I was there like every day. I was the first one to show up to warm-ups. Nobody else would show up, but I was like, man, I want to do this. I want to keep, we used to do Hindu squats. A lot of the stuff we used to do was like old school, like Krav Maga type stuff, man. But it was just body weight training. I didn't know anything. I guess like when you're saying like you started working out, and you probably worked out too much. When I started lifting weights, it was the same thing. I was just like, man, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm just going to push weight. Like, I didn't know anything about form. I didn't know anything about, like, not to overdo it. And the one thing I realized was that, like, when you build muscle, you need a day off to recover, because if not, that muscle never grows, man. And I didn't know that. And back then, I was at the gym every day. I'd get off work, go to the gym workout, go to MMA class. Same thing with running, with swimming. I was like a freaking Iron Man. That just wasn't sponsored, man. But it's good to know, man, because even now, of course, you are a coach and you own your own business. You're running your own business in Corpus. And what's the name of the business for everybody?
KO Sports Training and Corpus Christi Muay Thai.
Now, a coach, of course, with your students, man. Now you're able to see and kind of tell them what not to do.
Oh yeah, that's probably the best. That's probably one of the best things I'm able to do with my students, is help them recognize and avoid certain situations that I went through, I saw other people go through. Just being an athlete in different sports like that, and it's helped me understand the body a lot better.
Right.
And it helps me show them, explain to them kind of the route they need to take, and it's really helped me emphasize the recovery aspect over the last few years. And most athletes don't understand that. You get a really good, hardworking athlete, and all they want to do is work.
Right.
And sometimes you got to tell them, hey, go home.
Yeah.
Like, go eat, go rest, go ice down. I got a guy right now who You know, this is a Muay Thai fighter. He'll probably debut in MMA next year. I'm hoping so. But he's a national champ. His name's PJ Knox. He had a stroke a few years back, and this guy's made it all the way back from that. He actually won a national title in Muay Thai after that.
Wow.
But this guy runs at one point 8-10 miles a day, biking 8-10 miles a day, lifting.
That's a norm.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys, and then training. And I'm like, dude, some days like you got to back off a little bit, and it's a blessing and a curse because you know you want your guys to work that hard, and to really become really great at something. You have to fall in love with the process.
Right.
You just have to, and it's so rare that you find an athlete that really buys into that. Yeah. You know, and especially when they start young. You know, I brought a lot of guys up, guys that started with me. I have one right now that's 16 that's an absolute phenom, and you know, he started when he was 9. He's a multiple-time national champion. Has his projections are off the charts, but it's one of those things that you just don't know how things are going to happen because there's so many distractions with life.
Right.
You know, I could bring up somebody his age, and you know, you turn a teenager, so many more things are available. You start to drive, so many more things are available. You know, it's hard to find people that will fall in love with that process, but also understand the fact that to really gain each day, it's like something I was reading recently. The best supplement in the world is sleep.
Right. Right.
And I didn't understand that. That's probably what was one of the biggest factors that hurt my fighting career. Is I'd get up at 5 a.m. initially to get my workout in, or 4:30, get my workout in at 5, and you know, try to piece together a couple hours of sleep, get back to the gym to coach other fighters, get my training in, and it was just it's kind of a nightmare in certain regards.
No, yeah, and, you know, and of course at that time, I mean, you were trying to, I mean, you were running the gym at the time.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and of course you were trying to manage your fight career.
Yep.
And then life. I mean, of course, you know.
For sure.
I'm sure. You know, it's just like with Jacob here, man. I mean, he opened up a few months back, and I mean, he's here every day, and of course he has to because he's building. You know, he's trying to build this up. But yeah, I mean, there's days when, like you say, you just gotta unwind, and I know he does. He goes off on the weekend, and he's actually in Corpus most of the time, man. But it's good that he gets to do that, man, because otherwise he'd be here, and it's like, man, you need a break from the everyday hustle.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
Of course, I mean, you drove out here today?
Yeah, today.
And now you said you had doctor's appointments?
Oh, yeah.
And how did that go?
It's the same thing, just always kind of making sure everything's good to go. It's just an ongoing process. You know, you get older and it's... It becomes a lot more about maintenance and recovery than the actual building on top of stuff, you know?
No, yeah. You see, but on that note, I mean, you're not any worse than you were before. I mean, right now you're pretty...
I think I'm pretty good right now. I mean, what's funny is jiu-jitsu used to really play a number on my back. And now it took me a while to really get back into it full fold. You know, I got to thank Jimmy Lugo, who really pushed me back into it when I was working with him with a lot of the striking. But it seems like it's actually it's forced me to stretch more. It's forced me to do certain things that I probably took for granted or didn't even consider at the time. You know, Muay Thai was kind of let's get loose and bang it out. You know, hit some pads, crack some pads. But it's really helped me a lot because it's also given me an avenue after my fight career to have something else to focus on and have a drive to improve.
No, definitely. And I mean, it's like, I mean, I mentioned there earlier, man, as far as, you know, fighters, I mean, once the fight career is over, man, I mean, you know, a lot of people want to stick around. You know, back when I was working out and I was teaching at one point, and I stopped teaching and I kind of got introduced to Texas fighting, which my boy Chris Lopez Jr., and that outlet was open for me. And I said, you know what, I still wanted to stay involved, so it helped me because I was like, I wasn't training or I wasn't teaching anymore, but I said, you know what, I want to do this, man. And the biggest thing for me was getting footage, man, for everybody. You know, Texas MMA, of course, they're still going, but at the time, it was mostly Austin, Houston, and so South Texas had nobody, and San Antonio was kind of, you know, sleek. But that's why I started doing what I did, man. But on that same note, I mean, of course, I mean, therapy, man. I mean, what's therapeutic for you right now? I mean, when you're not training, what are you doing?
Man, honestly, it's funny because it's teaching. Teaching really, and I think I posted on this a couple days ago, but I really enjoy teaching the kids classes.
Right.
It just makes me slow down a little bit. It helps my communication constantly, and it brings me a lot of joy to know that you're helping the next generation, and maybe not fighters,
right.
but just the next generation of people that are going to be on this planet, and hoping that what you're doing is creating, or at least helping develop better people, so
right.
that way, and the martial arts community in general.
No, for sure, man. And one of the things, and I stole it from somebody years back, but they had posted. I mean, they were saying if you can't be a champion in MMA, be a champion at life. And that always stuck with me, because it's like, I mean, just because something's over doesn't mean something else can't start, right?
For sure.
And I mean, that's something you want to keep doing, man. I mean, the fact that you're teaching kids and you're teaching the next generation, I mean, that's awesome, because one of those kids can run for mayor, one of those kids can be the next doctor,
sure, exactly.
and it's for them to look back and be like, you know what, it was because of this that you
just helped a small piece of that pie. You know what I mean? It's just the best thing in life you can be is a good person.
No, for sure, and it's free.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't cost anything. No. It doesn't take anything. You can go outside and just say, "Hey, how's it going today, man?" And it's funny I say that because I was working at the post office at this time, and I was miserable. I hated it. I mean, I left it. I was working for the post office 15 years, and the last few years of my career there, like I just didn't want to be there anymore. I would leave, and I would just sense like stress would just leave, and I'm like, man, you know what? And I knew it was that place. It was toxic, man. It was just horrible. Just people, in general. Yeah. The work that I worked with, right? But I would leave, like before work, I go to, I stop at Walmart or somewhere, and I would greet people. I'd be like, hey, how's it going, man? And people, hey, and I was like, wow, like I'll make their day, they made my day. But as soon as I get to work, I was just like, man, all that
switch off,
like everything was sucked out of me, man. But it was just, I started doing that for myself, to where I was just like, you know what, man, I gotta start. And that's kind of why I left. I mean, when I left the post office, I was just like, you know what, I'm ready. I want to do something else. But being a nice person, man, I just started helping people, man. Like just in general, every day. Right now, I'm a contract delivery driver, so I'm driving all over the city. Like clockwork, man. I'm always stopping. People pulled over. They need help. I pull over. Hey, man, you need help? You need something? Yeah. I have jumper cables. I'm like a freaking AAA guy, right? But it's just on that same note. I mean, I've been on that same page where I'm stranded somewhere and I'm like, crap, dude, and I'm pop my hood. That's the international sign for I need help, right? Yeah. And so and somebody pulls over and they're like, hey, man, you need. I'm like, dude, this happened. Oh yeah, and they help me out, and I'm just like, you know what, man? And it's all about paying it forward, And it's good, man. I mean, growing up, of course, I don't know how life was for you. For me, it was a little bit all over the place. But I used to have a lot of anger. I used to have a lot of. I wasn't happy with myself. I'll put it that way. And so I used to take it out on everything else. I mean, once I got older, I got into alcohol and I started drinking, and I started drinking my pain away, basically. And it turned me into something else. And it was a drunk idiot from what I can remember now, But it's an outlet, man, and I mean it's something. For me personally, man, if I could go back in time, then you know what, I would participate more. One of the things that I always say, and I always tell my kids now, or anybody, is like the opposite of depression is expression. And if somebody would have told me that when I was in high school, man, I would have gotten into sports, I would have gotten into art, I would have gotten into just to let it out, because you don't want to hold that stuff in, man. It makes you a bitter person, man. And as far as yourself, man, I mean, what keeps you going these days, man? I mean, of course, obviously your gym, but
I'd say, I mean, probably the my parents, but the biggest support I have is my fiance. She puts up with me.
Oh yeah,
so especially a coach's lifestyle. It's hard for a lot of people to imagine. I can be teaching all week. I don't get home till 9. Sometimes, probably on average. Then we leave for tournaments, like say we're a national Muay Thai tournament that's in Phoenix or Iowa, or the kickboxing ones in Connecticut, Florida. There's just so much places where we're all over the place, Oklahoma. And I'm gone for 4 days, and then it's back on a Monday morning, Monday afternoon, I'm right back in the gym. Same thing with my fight career. I mean, when I switched teams, or when I jumped in and started getting mentored and coached by Bob Pettis in Houston, in 4 Ounce Fight Club. I was up there for camps where I'd be up there for, Sunday night through Saturday morning.
Damn.
And so I'd get home and I'd be able to see her, and we'd probably, we'd hang out. We got some dogs that we love that kind of are our children currently, at least. But, I get limited time, and she's put up with a lot of that, and she's, I can't imagine how frustrating it's been on her end, because I know how frustrating owning a business and then being a coach in that business, and one time being a fighter and a coach and owner in a business.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's just consuming. And so her just still being with me at this point is pretty phenomenal.
No, for sure, man. And thank you for doing that, because obviously it takes a strong person. Me doing this, I try to do it when I can. Of course, traveling, of course, man, I'm trying to cover more events. But yeah, man, it's one of those things like, okay, well, what else is going on in my life? Like, do we have anything else going on? Because obviously, I got to make time, for her as well. But yeah, man. But it is time consuming. You mentioned, sometimes you guys leave the gym at 9 or you go home. Does that really happen? Because I know here they stick around till like 10:30, 11 o'clock, man. So nobody wants to go home.
Usually, it's gotten to the point where I've prioritized, hey, when I'm off, I need to be off.
Right.
I used to not. I used to just kind of hang around the gym. I won't say waste time, because you're spending it with people you care about,
right,
and things you care about. But I've gotten better with, hey, this is not time for the gym. This is not time for MMA and Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling. This is our time, and it's nice to a large degree that she could tell you what's crazy. She doesn't train, but she can tell you a lot what's going on in fights. But she's not a huge fan of it, and it's a blessing in a lot of ways, because it's like a disconnect that I need.
Yeah.
I get so obsessed. I'll go home and watch, Showtime boxing till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Old glory fights, current fights are all tune into the stadium fights in Thailand, because they're going on when we're all sleeping typically. Yeah. So it helps me to realize, man, I'm here, I'm home, it's time to disconnect.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a blessing.
And that's good, because I know a lot of people do that. I haven't, last year I think I did it once, where I got off social media for like a week, and it feels good. Because you're not, there's a lot of stress that social media in general puts on us, man, because it's like addicting. We're like, man, well, what else is next, or who's doing this, or who's...
It's like reality TV at your fingertips.
Exactly,
to a large
man.
degree.
Yeah, and yeah, if even now, like, I contract, so I work when I can, or if I get jobs lined up, of course I'll go and do them. But it gives me a lot of leeway. Yesterday I got to take my oldest to lunch.
Nice,
so it works with me, and I'm cool with that. That's kind of why I like where I'm at. But yeah, before it was kind of hard, man, because you kind of you have a family, you have kids. I have kids. There was more than once where I didn't go to a fight because my kids were like, hey, Dad, can we go somewhere this weekend? And I'm like, yeah, you know what, let's go somewhere. And no regrets. I love my kids. They're my best friends. And even now, man, like I talk to them, and it's just like, I know they're my kids because they finish my sentences, so it's like I'll be saying something, and they're like, oh, and then somebody says something else, and I'm like, you know what, yeah, like, and I like it, man. It's I always tell everybody my mom's my best friend. My mom's actually living with us right now, and I'm grateful, because now I'm able to wake up with her. And,
family's a lot, man.
Yeah, man, and it's like, and if it wasn't for the fact that she wasn't living with us, I would go see her. Like every chance I got, I would stop by lunch, take her breakfast, or whatnot, or on the way home, bring her dinner. But now that she's there, I'm like, you know what, man, it's whatever I put her through, and I put her through hell, man. Now I'm like, you know what, this is the least I can do. Her health hasn't been great. Now she's losing her eyesight, and has trouble getting dressed and stuff like that. That's where I come in. I'm like, you know what, and before I leave, I make her breakfast, I get her dressed, I get her ready, and I'm like, okay, you know what, we have thank God we have a provider that comes in throughout the day. And it's like a shift, when I get home, it's my turn. So I try to get home by 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then just Yeah,
that's respectable. It's a lost. Unfortunately, it's kind of, it gets. It's not something everybody does for the family here in the U.S.
Oh no,
it's
man.
just a different cultural thing, and it's nice to hear that. It's nice to see people do that, because the fact is parents brought us in this world. They brought us along. They I mean, a lot of times we wouldn't be sitting here talking on this podcast without them around. And you got to give back, and it's just not enough people do it that way.
No, you see, and I mean, I come from a family of 8.
Wow.
So it's just me. They help out and they'll call and whatnot, but it's just it's been to where like she was staying with a family member and they couldn't handle it. Like and it is a lot, man. I ain't gonna lie. Like it's just after a while I get home and I'm like, okay, and I literally have to be like, yeah, I gotta, you know what I mean? Like I gotta put whatever aside and do it, because I have to. And because I want to, of course, but it's more like, I can see where people kind of like, man, like, because it's like a baby, man. You gotta like
stressful. Regardless, stressful.
Yeah. So it's just but it is mom. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be there till her very last breath, man. But yeah, on the same note, man, when I get older, man, I hope my kids listening, they get ready, man, because. But yeah, man. But of course, like you said, the upbringing, man. Growing up, you say, of course, your dad was big on baseball.
Yeah, big baseball fan.
And talk to us about this baseball card collection, bro.
What's funny is my dad. They just I met them right before here because they had to drop off some presents and stuff because we didn't get up to see them this Christmas. He gave me a Willie Mays coin. That's like a 57 mint coin. 1957 mint coin, but we have a collection that's for those that have seen it or know about it or grew up with me, it's pretty legendary. It's hard to explain. In the luck of the draw, we pull cards that just are mind blowing. I remember we walked into a baseball card shop at one point in time, and this is like '92, right when they started putting autographs in packs.
Oh, nice.
And I think it was a Pro Line pack. I may be wrong. But it was Brett Favre's rookie year. And the lady hands me some packs, and, I think I bought 2 packs. And she's like, if you get a autographed card, or something like that, I don't think you'll get one because I've opened up 2 boxes, haven't gotten one yet. So my first pack I opened up, right on top, was a Brett Favre autograph.
Damn.
And she's like, I'll give you 2 boxes for that right now. I was like, nah, I think I'll hold on to it. I didn't know who he was at the time.
Yeah. And
I was like, I think I'll hold on to it. And sure enough, it came where it came. But we just had a lot of luck with that. My dad's pulled a Emmitt Smith 22 karat gold card out of a pack. My uncle at one point when we were visiting up in North Dakota, I was in the living room messing around with some cards and stuff, and he came by and he's like, hey, you might want this, and tosses me a baseball. And it was signed by the entire 1962 Yankees.
Oh,
the whole team.
Man.
It's just, we have so much stuff, it's unreal. It's my dad has a room dedicated to it, and it probably only displays about a quarter of what we got because it's crazy how many cards we have.
Damn. Well, that's good though, man, because obviously that's something that you guys bond with.
Oh yeah.
A lot
of memories.
Yeah.
A lot of memories.
No doubt, man. I know. I used to work for Academy Sports, and I've worked with them for years, on and off. Until they went public and they ruined the whole company. But I've worked with them like 7 years, just on and off. I worked seasonal, part time. I always tell people this story because when I started working, I was at the location on Parent Bido and 410. And going to the bathroom, you have to go to the main office, and on the main office is a big photo, and of course there's a guy in the middle. And of course you're thinking, okay, that guy's important, right? He's somebody. And I saw him, and I was like, okay. I went to the bathroom. I went back outside. I'm working on the floor, also with the fitness equipment, and I see this guy walking up, and I was like, oh, it's that guy from the photo. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he's talking, and I'm like, hey, how you doing today? And he's the first day, and I said, yeah, I just started. I was actually at the post office at the time. I was working there part time, and I said, what about you? You've been here for a while? He's like, I've been here for quite a bit, this and that. Older gentleman. And he's like, my name's Greg. And I say, hey, name's Mario. I say, nice to meet you. So he takes off, I say, I'll see you later. And so he's walking, I see him walking around with all the managers, and all the managers are behind him. It's like managers from all over the city, right? And he walks up, and he's like, hey, Mario. And I say, hey, how's it going, Greg? And all the other managers kind of like, what the hell? Like, they're looking at each other like, how does he know him? And it's funny because at that time people were like, man, how do you know him? And I said, oh man, I know Greg from way back, man. Like, and I've always been on the bullshit, dude. Like, I don't know. My kids hate it because every time they would ask me something, they're like, Dad, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm joking. And they're like, well, we can't tell. But that happened, and because of that, man, Greg Miller was the general manager, man, for Big Lots. For Academy Sports, and I throughout the years, I would leave. I would work seasonal. I could work somewhere else. And this man would ask me, like, he sent me to other stores to clean up the departments. Like, he was like, hey, man, you know what? I like what you're doing, man. Like, if I transfer you to the other stores, I'll give you a raise. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll do it. Yeah. So, and it got to the point to where I would get to the stores, and I'm like, hey, I'm the new employee. He said, yeah, I already talked to Greg, man. He said, well, he told me to let you do whatever you want.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. So he said, and I said, hey, well, I need to clear this. And he said, dude, do it. He just told me to let you do whatever. So I'm like, oh, hell yeah, dude. So I loved it, man, because I was like, you know what? But this guy, he would send me to seminars in Katy, Texas. I was a part-time employee, man. And he would send me with the managers. And the managers over there would get mad because they're like, dude, we're supposed to be nothing but managers. And I'm like, Greg?
Not my fault.
Yeah, like Greg would be like, no, I want Greg to go. And so I would go to Katy. They give us like a $250, so we go out there and eat. And all the product, all the new merchandise. And I loved it because at the time I was training in MMA, and they used to give us like boxes of freaking protein bars and mix, and the vendors would be like, man, take whatever you can, man. I mean, the less we have to take back. I'm like, dude, I'm piling everything up in the car. But because of that, man, there was a baseball player, and I cannot recall his name. They had him at make an appearance at one of the stores, and he had asked me like, hey, you want to go store 1524, I think it was, grabbing somebody out there, if you want to help for crowd control. So I'm like, yeah, sure, So I went, and we're there like security. I mean, we're in freaking uniforms, but we're keeping people, and there was like a lot of people, man. And I kept that baseball. I'm gonna have to look it up because I think it's still at home. But it was autographed, and he signed it, and I'm not sure who that was, man. But I kept it also because he was like, hey, here you go, and I was like, all right, cool, man. Like,
yeah, obviously somebody pretty important.
Sure, man. I might be able to retire tomorrow, man. We'll see. But because of that, man. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities. Greg Miller. I mean, he ended up passing away, man, unfortunately. But the man, like he used to be in a band. I don't know if it was the Birds. He used to play guitar, and somebody brought it up to my attention like years later because they were like, man, he used to be in a band. And I'm like, and I gotta look him up again, man, because actually every time I drive by the store, I'm like, man, that guy was, yeah, because he was like stand up dude, man, old school, like, you respected him. He was like, hey, he was like kind of like reminds me of those.
Kind of a lost art nowadays.
Yeah, no, yeah, bro. I mean, that's what I'm saying, because even with the Academy Sports, like when I went back like a few years later, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back part-time. And it changed completely. Even the guys that I knew that were still working there, they're like, dude, it's not like it used to, bro. Like, I mean, it changed so much. Like, customer service went out the window. Everything was about product, about just merchandising. And I'm like, okay, great. Business, of course, but customer service, man, like it wasn't there. And I'm like, and people, I would like, hey, how can I help you today? And management would be like, hey, man, I need you to work on this, don't. And I'm thinking like, man, that's bullshit, dude. Like it wasn't me, and I left. I was there like maybe like 2 months, and I was just like, man, I'm out. Like, I liked it, but it wasn't the same.
Change, yeah, for sure.
And so that, but I'm gonna look up. I mean, now that you bring up baseball, man, I'm gonna have to look that up, and I'll keep you posted, man. Because but I'll say this, bro. With that being said, Academy Sports, of course, UFC was going to Austin. Charles Sonnen and Vanderlei Silva were going to Academy Sports out there in North Austin. I forgot the name. I forgot what the heck is out there, but it was just like right outside North Austin. Not Round Rock, but it was on the
other side, kind of like Northbrook Mall or something like that, right up there.
I'll say there's a toll booth, because I didn't know that. I had to go through a toll just to get there, and I'm like, dude, they sent me this bill, right, for $3 and something change. I don't even know if I paid it, but I'm talking to my manager at the store, and I'm telling them, and I'm like, hey, man, do you know anybody working at that store, in Austin? And he's like, yeah, I know so-and-so. And I said, dude, is there anyone, can you call and see, maybe I can go over there and help? And he's like, what do you mean, like volunteer? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, there's a fight happening and I want to go. And he was like, yeah, I guess, So I said, yeah, we'll call him and let me know. Well, he calls the guy, and he, later on that day, he says, hey, man, you're good. He said you can show up and just take your uniform. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude. So I got to go out there. Texas, I was still doing Texas fighting. Chris Lopez was the UFC, and they were doing like a press conference with Dana White. I'm at Academy Sports with freaking Vanderlei Silva and Charles Sonnen, dude. And I'm over here trying to get closer and closer to him, right? And I don't know why, like everybody had like gloves and people, and they're like, hey, make sure they pay for them before they sign them, so they're having to hold the receipt. And I was just like, damn, dude, I want to get something signed. And I went, and they were out of gloves. I didn't take anything, and I'm thinking, damn. So I said, you know what? I said, I'll be right back. I freaking ran to the camping department, and I get this axe handle.
Oh, man,
and I'm like, I go buy it, and I'm like, I go back to.
That's actually a perfect.
Yeah, dude. And I was like, you know what, man? So I go, and I'm standing there because they were like, hey, make sure nobody. Like, they were telling us not to get autographs, basically, and I was like, man, screw this, and so I'm there getting closer and closer, and I see Vandele, and I'm like, hey, Vandele, I say, hey, man, can you sign this? And he sees it, and he's like, oh, hey, he saw it right away, and so he's put on there, axe murderer, Vandele Silva, awesome. Man, and so when they signed it, I was just like, boom, I put it in my, wrapped the receipt around it, and I put it in my pocket, and I'm thinking, like, hell yeah, dude, and I mean, South Zona was on the other end, but I wasn't a big fan of the guy, but I mean, if I would have gotten both, that would have been sweet, man. But it's stuff like that, man. I mean, I like it because I'm a fan, and when I get to do opportunities like that, I'm like, hell yeah, why not, dude? You've been in the sport for a minute, man. I mean, competing. Have you ever been fan struck? Have you been somewhere and you're like, oh man?
I don't want to say necessarily fan struck. I do have some moments where I really wish I would have taken a picture with a few people, just memory-wise,
right.
To be able to go back and say, man, that was good times. When I was up at Cowboys Ranch for a little while and training at Jackson's, it's first day I walk in and my first sparring partner was Clay Guida.
Oh, damn.
And so, it's just, and a lot of cool people. I mean, a lot of good guys. And I think the last person I sparred with there before I left back to Corpus was Condit. And it's just, seeing all these guys and talking with him. This is right before Tim Kennedy was up there. It was right before he fought Rockholt.
Yeah.
And it was just more of I wish I had documented more of the actual journey and the memories of everything more.
No kidding, man. That would have been. I mean, and opportunities like that, man. And that's kind of what I tell people now that I hate what I do because I'm the guy holding the camera, so it's rare that I'm like taking pictures. I'll try to catch them when I can. But yeah, man. I mean, especially Jackson's, dude. I can only imagine because the talent pool is freaking amazing,
crazy,
dude.
And it's just you didn't want to be that guy, really,
Yeah.
But because I know I'm not saying I was ever at that level, but you fans, it's two-sided.
Yeah.
You get real respectable fans, and you get times where they may even be respectable, but you just don't want to deal with things right there.
Right.
And especially when you go into the gym, your training time for a lot of fighters, I mean, I'm sure yourself included, when we go to train, that's our escape.
Yeah.
It really is. It may be a job, it may be hard, it may be painful, but the fact is it's all welcomed because it's that point where we can disconnect from the world a little bit,
right.
Typical life. And you don't want to take that or rob any moments from other people while they're trying to enjoy that, because you enjoy it. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, we had some things. Cowboys Ranch. We took some pictures and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wish I had documented more as I was going along. And
I guess even back then, because I know social media has blown up since then. So now everybody's taking selfies and doing. All this, so they're
TikTok
doing photos
and everything.
Yeah, now they're doing a video while they're training, and I'm like, come on, man. But yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, back then, that was, I don't want to say it was frowned upon, but out of respect, you were like, you know what, I'll give them their space and not do that.
Yeah.
For me, man, I mean, of course, I mean, meeting Vandele, I mean, I've Cain Velasquez, I mean, I've been next to a lot of good people, man. I've been fan struck to a certain extent. Like when I'm out there covering fights, I zone out and I don't even know where the hell I am. Right, half the time I'm like, okay, where am I at? Where did I park? Right, because I get lost. But as a fan, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of good people, man. Even like you guys, man. I mean, I go out there and the fact that I'm able to see you guys compete, I'm like, hell yeah, dude, because you never know. You might be from amateur to pro, and before you know it, man, they're out there freaking in the UFC or wherever, But yeah, I mean, the same note, man. I wish I would have done a lot more of a fan base. Like, I wish I would have been able to hang out and, talk to. But I have had a few moments. Steven Quadros, covering Strikeforce or Bellator, man. But I was out there in Austin, and I don't want to say I snuck in, but I went inside the building, So I'm walking around with my camera, and people are kind of just like, hey, he's the camera guy. So I'm like, cool. So I'm walking towards the back, and I see Steven Quadros, man, and I'm like, dude, I said, hey, man, how's it going, man? And I'm talking like I know the guy, and the guy's like, hey, yeah, hey, like, who the heck are you, right? But, and I said, man, I've seen you so much on TV, I feel like I know you, man. I said, it's just, it's a pleasure. I said, man, I'm doing covering the fight tonight, and oh yeah, and I said, man, I remember watching you in Pride, man. I said, you're doing a phenomenal job. I said, I've always been a fan. I said, with you and Boss Bruton, man. And he's like, and I got this gleam in his eye, like where you could tell he just kind of like, yeah, dude, like, man, those were good times, you know. And he says, man, it was a pleasure. And then I didn't even take a photo, bro. Like, I was so
like he just, the moment was so good. You didn't take a
and so it was one of those things where I'm like, damn, and I have him on Facebook, and I'm like, hey, man, he don't remember me. But, I'm like, hey, dude, like the fact that I got to meet him and I was able to, because, the guy's an actor, of course. He's been everywhere, Hollywood, but, Pride Days, man, I can only imagine, bro. Stories, man. Those have to have been freaking memorable. But he was probably the one that I wish I could have gotten that moment to even interview the guy, or even just take a damn photo, be able to say like, yeah, man, I'm freaking chilling with Steven Quadros, man. But yeah, man. But and I was gonna say, man, like, if you could go back and train with anybody back then, but I'm pretty sure you did training at Jackson. But would there be one fighter or camp that you would have loved to?
Man, I would have honestly, if I could go back and do certain things over, I would have probably moved to Thailand.
Really?
Yeah. Probably. It's just that, or I would have definitely, as much as I love striking now, and the Muay Thai game in general, it's just it's something else, and it was an experience that I wish I would have really jumped into. And I had a couple opportunities too with Robert Viegas. Me and him talked about it a couple times. Just never pulled the trigger on it. I've had one of my students that's gone over and lived in Thailand and trained there, and you could just see the improvement just because the reps, and that's all you're doing all day is just training. And there's that dog in me that just likes to just work, and you'll see so much improvement by isolating yourself like that. And it was just, you look where the game's at now, and especially where the outside of Khabib retiring, and then certain guys that are coming up that are more wrestling oriented, but the game's really kind of turned into the NFL. And let's stand and bang, let's stand and throw 60-yard bombs, basically.
So we can get knocked out first.
Exactly. And you see all these people that have crossed over from high level striking sports having so much success. Whether it's Adesanya, or one of my favorites that I've gotten to hang out with and train with is Valentina Shevchenko.
Oh, nice, man.
Like, I probably overuse her as examples in everything, just because I'm big on composure. I'm big on certain things like that in fighting, and she's just such a prime example of how to do everything right. It just really is. She's clean with everything. She's violent with everything. But there's a fight IQ there that, you see certain fighters. Daniel Cormier had it. That's what Peter Yan. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch right now. He's just, and Valentina, of course, Adesanya. These guys just, there's a different level of composure with them, and it's getting used to getting hit, and developing that identity through that, and the comfort with it. Just, it's game changing. I had a lot of success early on in MMA, kind of wrestling and brawling.
Right.
And I wish since something I couldn't have changed, I wish I hadn't changed my style to a large degree. Because I didn't have the amateur career that a lot of guys had. I had one MMA amateur fight for the most part. And that was a sanctioned MMA fight. And even then it was in Louisiana, so who knows if it was sanctioned. But it was, I never got to form that identity with it midway through my career, and it's, when I would start training with Bob and I started seeing all this striking and all the cool things you could do with it. Like, if I had known half of what I know now in my career, it would have just been game changing, because the clinch work, the just, I want to say higher level boxing, it would have enhanced things. But I tried to force that and learn that in my pro career, when a lot of people are filtering, molding that in their amateur career, to where they can refine it to when they get pro. Now, this is who I am, this is how I can do these things. And that's what I'm big on now. Like, with a lot of my amateur fighters now, I require them to fight Muay Thai before they do anything. I want them used to getting hit. I want them to feel there's no safe spot. Right. Muay Thai, you clinch, you're going to get elbow, knee, thrown, dumped. And then once you hit the ground, the ref's going to tell you to get back up, and that guy that just threw you on the ground is going to be right back in your face.
He'll be waiting for you, man.
And there's a level of aggression that you develop in those striking sports, especially Muay Thai, that is just, it's almost impossible to get in anything else.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. And then one of the things, man, because like you said, I mean, as far as the striking, it is a lot cleaner. I mean, when it comes to the fighters that you mentioned, I guess I can say, like, with Pride, I liked it a lot more because, I mean, it was MMA and it was, but there wasn't a lot of trash talk. There wasn't a lot. It was just like you went in there and you fought. I mean, there was a couple of grudge matches that they had. But
anyone with a Rona.
Yeah, exactly. But it's it comes to the point, like, even with the UFC right now, man. Like, I'm not real big on trash talking and everybody. You know what? If you're gonna fight, man. Just go ahead and do it. There's a lot of brawlers in there, of course. The wrestlers that come in there, slugging. Chandler versus Gaethje was one of them.
Oh wow, yeah.
And on that matchup, I like a knockout, just like the rest. When it comes to technique, I mean, that matchup was just freaking all over the place. And it's like I told people, I mean, both guys can kick my ass any day, of course, but when it comes to that level, like, I don't see them. If they keep doing that, they keep brawling, I don't see them evolving anymore, man, because that's like...
What worries me with Gaethje. I just feel like he's been in too many wars at this point.
Oh, yeah, bro. You see that?
Eventually, it's going to be that Chuck Liddell effect, and that chin's just not going to hold up. And it's weird because we saw two different Gaethjes. We saw the Gaethje versus Ferguson where things were so clean. Whitman had him on point. I mean, it was pretty to watch footwork, how he's getting in and out. How he's following up with things, and then you see the Chandler fight. It's like watching old Dustin Poirier Gaethje fight again, where they're just slinging. So I mean, that 55 division is it's a crapshoot right now, and I think that's probably gonna be the most interesting division in fighting for the next couple of years, just because the top four, and with some like Islam coming in, there's just so many guys in that division with so much talent. It's going to be impressive if anybody can actually defend the belt.
Oh yeah, you see, and one of the things I had mentioned the other day was, with the people, the fighters holding their titles now, like, who's going to be the first to lose the title next year, man?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's interesting. All of them are freaking hot. Opponents, of course, coming by the freaking,
Oh yeah, it's crazy. You got kids, it's just a different thing. The age groups have totally changed.
Oh yeah.
You get people that are jumping in the UFC at 20 years old now, 21, 22, and back in the day, the only reason that happened is just because there wasn't that many fighters in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think the UFC's gotten a lot more interesting, and I feel like Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard have really upped the matches. They've gotten even better, which is sometimes it's hard to fathom. I'm looking forward to the women's division. I mean, with Pena beating Nunez, now you got Shevchenko probably looking at Pena thinking, man, I armbarred you. Like, this will get me another Nunez fight. I mean, it's just, and then possible Miesha Tate moving down. I mean.
Oh yeah, you see, it's interesting. It is mixed martial arts, man. But the fact that with Nunes losing, I mean, opened the door for a lot of more fighters, man, and more possibilities. I mean, people like John Jones, man. I mean, did you get to train with the guy out there?
He wasn't even in camp when I was up there. It was pretty much, and Arlovsky was there for a few days, him and his big bulldog. But for the most part, I want to say a lot of the guys, there were a lot of 85ers and down for the most part. I mean, it was like Tim Kennedy, obviously Cowboy. Leonard wasn't in camp; he just got done fighting. But Condit was there. There was a typical group there, but he wasn't there at the time. It seems like it was typified by that was kind of the time period where he was winning and not training as much as he Not that he ever seemed to ever have trained as hard as some other people. I mean, right now he seems like he's really getting a lot of work in, but still hasn't fought in 2 years.
No, yeah, man. So. And that was what I was going to ask, man. I mean, what do you think? Do you see John Jones competing this year at heavyweight?
No, I want to say, I mean, for MMA, I would hope so. For the sport in general, I just don't know how he's going to translate to that heavyweight. That's just a different division. It's just. Yeah. You look at guys in there, and John Jones has never been a guy that touches you, starches you, and they draw a chalk outline.
Right.
He's just not that kind of guy. And you see a lot of this. There's a lot of strikers in that heavyweight division. A lot of big guys that are bigger than him.
Yeah.
I mean, Derek Lewis alone. Derek Lewis touches you, you die. And it's one of those things, I don't think he can take the shots that those guys give. I mean, that Reyes hit him with, that some of these other guys, Thiago Santos hit him with. And you look at, and then on top of it, you look at like Francis Ngannou in this Cyril Gane fight. Like Cyril Gane is, that guy's fight IQ, his athletic ability is off the charts. Not that Ngannou's isn't, but listening to Cyril Gane talk and watching interviews, I was watching a lot leading up to the Derek Lewis fight, obviously because of my relationship with Bob. And so I was just kind of, just enthralled in the whole thing and trying to take in and see exactly who Derek's fighting. This guy's, Cyril Gane was, 9-0 at the time, relatively young to the MMA scene and inexperienced. And listening to him talk was just, it was mind-blowing how smart this guy is, how, I fall back to that composure thing, but how calm and composed he is.
He is. Like you said, his fight game, as far as leading up to the fight, he was just so comfortable that I was just like, man, this guy's going to win, man. I just, with Derek Lewis, you just never know, because the guy comes out of nowhere. And
just takes one,
and props to him, man, because he's his last fight, same thing,
but
when I leading up to the fight, I was kind of like, man, I was leaning more towards,
Yeah, I get it. You look at holistic skill set, and Gane's skill set's off the charts, but Derek Lewis probably is the most dangerous MMA fighter to ever fight. Just the simple fact that he can lose every round as long as he lands one punch. He's the ultimate prize fighter in that regard, and it's just, you can't count him out.
No, not at all. One of my best clips from him, and I've been able to see him fight live, regional circuits with Legacy and everything, and one of the fights, it was in the UFC where the guy's on side control, and he just puts his hands up and gets up. And it looks so awkward because it's like he was just like, man, I just got tired of being down there.
I'm gonna get up.
Yeah, and he did, and I'm thinking like, damn, dude, like that's.
He had Galarraga on his back and stood up and shook him off. He had Roy Nelson on top of him, got up. There's something special about Derek athletically, human being wise. He's just a different person. Yeah. Different athlete.
You see, and one of the things that I like to always bring up, man, it's just when I started training, I went through instructors like trying to, get affiliated or ranked at that time. And everybody kept saying like, oh man, your style's not jiu-jitsu. I've been doing.
I've heard that all the
time, I call it cash wrestling with a gi, right? Because everything we did was grappling. It was like Russian sambo type, it's just a little bit of everything. But I was able to hold my own. I went against legit purple belts, blue belts, where I was able to get away without getting choked out and putting pressure and actually attacking. And everybody's like, damn, dude, like that was good. It's good rounds. And one of the things that I like is that when a jiu-jitsu guy rolls with a jiu-jitsu guy, even back then, or especially back then, you kind of expect a jiu-jitsu move. Yeah. When I used to roll with jiu-jitsu guys, they didn't know what to expect because they're expecting me to react a certain way, and I will go a different way, and I will catch them off guard because of that. Because they're like, "Oh crap! Like I'm used to people rolling this way." Yeah. You know what I mean?
Different level of pressure, different level of thought process,
and that's kind of where Derek Lewis reminds me of, man, because people are so used to wrestling and the guy usually stays here. It's like Derek's like, hell no, dude, I'm gonna get up and
it seems like the total wrong way to do it.
Oh yeah,
and that's what it is. It's like he's so strong and he's gifted, and it's the point where it's like, oh, I think this is where I'm gonna hold. This is where he's gonna go. Yeah. And then he starts doing this, and they're like, what are you doing?
So like, why are you doing that?
Oh, he's up. It's mind blowing. And then when he got with Bob, Bob is so good from a mental standpoint, not just his ability to teach strikers, but his refinement, his game planning. It's pretty much second to none in my opinion, and he's so humble that, at this point, it's just, he deserves a lot of credit. He turned around Lauren Murphy's career to a large degree. And it's not that she was a world-class striker at this point, but it's what he's been able to do with game plans, the mentality of it, the process. One of my fighters is up there, ex-fighters is up there, Jacob Berry, who is a multiple-time Muay Thai national champion. He can't get an amateur fight right now because of his Muay Thai background. So he's probably going to end up having to go pro, and it's not the perfect situation or scenario, but man, if you have that team up there and you have Bob in your corner,
can't go wrong. Huh?
Can't go wrong.
Oh, that's perfect, man. As far as like I've seen Bob through at the fights. I mean, just through the fight game. I've never met the guy personally. I know what he's done and I know what he's accomplished, and as far as working with fighters everywhere, man. And I mean, I think there's not one Muay Thai gym here that hasn't
had him over for a seminar.
Yeah. Actually worked with him one way or another, because how can you not, right?
100%.
I mean, the guy's definitely talented. I mean, he brings a lot to the table, not just in Muay Thai, but in MMA. The fact that his fight IQ is up there, I mean, is that like you go train with the guy, of course, right? You're under him. Are you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've stayed with him. I mean, he's a good friend.
And
good guy.
Being at that level, I mean, seeing him doing what he's doing, is that kind of what you want to, like,
for sure,
evolve into later on?
For sure. I watch him. I brought him down a ton of times to the gym, and it's not even for seminars at times. Just hey, I'm aligning you up 10 privates. And then just to get to sit there and watch him talk and work, and that's priceless in itself. Is sometimes, I can tell my fighter, hey, you're doing this wrong. We're the weight shift is off in terms of maybe we're leaning on the jab, or we're not sitting down on the cross. And it's like, my dad used to tell me stuff with baseball. We worked all the time, and he'd tell me something. I'm like, and then I get with some coach, and the coach is, like, for instance, I played under Steve Chapman at Cal Allen, and one time I took a private lesson for him, and he tells me the same thing my dad's been telling me, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I see my dad just kind of turn around in the background like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
But it's, it helps that Bob commands so much respect, and that he has an eye, and on top of it, he has that gym that they're up at Main Street, the boxing gym side of it. You have some of the best boxing coaches on the planet up there. I mean, you go on a Wednesday sparring session and it's surreal in the morning, because it's just guys hammering it out, and you've got a parking lot full of world champions, Regis Prograis. There's just so many of up there, and Bobby Benton, who's one of the main coaches up there, Dwight Smith is the other one. These guys, they've coached probably hundreds of world champions in boxing, and they're still the most humble people on earth. And sometimes I've gone up there and I've walked around during that time, and I'll just sit kind of fly on the wall next to one of them and listen to what they're telling their fighter, because you get to a level, especially in Muay Thai, where technically from that aspect you've seen pretty much almost everything from a technical side of things,
right? And
then it becomes, well, this person does this technique this way at this time, and you see these little nuances, or these little additions, or maybe I do it a little different, or I time this a little different, and it gives you that many more options. There's not really those like huge aha moments like when you're learning and you're coming up, but as a coach, that's not what you're really looking for at that point. You want to see, well, what is he saying to this guy that's bringing that out? How's he communicating this? Because there's so many different avenues in which, because every fighter's different, like every person.
Right. And
one fighter, maybe you pull him in the corner between rounds because he's not listening to the game plan or following instructions, and you have to just scream at him.
Right.
Or at least wake him up. Some guys you can't do that to, or they shut down, and you've got to, hey, calm down. We need to get back to this. Start leading with your jab and stepping off. Where some guys are like, hey, wake up. Start hitting your jab, and there's different approaches, and and it helps to see how these high-level coaches communicate that to different people, and that really becomes game-changing, because, like I said, I have fighters that need that fire in the corner, and then I have fighters that need that calm demeanor in the corner, to where I bring them back down.
Right.
Some guys are too low and they need to get up. And then some guys run too much up here and they need to calm down
to reality and be like, hey. You see, and that's good you say that, man, because, I mean, obviously as a coach, I mean, an instructor and being out there, I mean, you got to know your fighters, right? I mean, 100%. Who reacts to what and how. And that's good. I've never really thought about that, man. I mean, of course, I'm not a coach. But I will say this, though, man. One thing, even when I used to do seminars, I've been a radiogo, I mean, mostly jiu-jitsu, of course, but I used to go to these seminars, man, and it was mostly Brazilians, and I used to pick up little details, and it was always that one little detail that I would get from the whole freaking scenario. I mean, everything was like, you know, cool stuff, and of course, you know, but I was just like, oh man, like, you know what, he had
latch onto that.
Yeah, and then it would just catch my attention to where. But one of the things that I used to like about seminars, as far as the ones that I went to, was that they made it fun.
Yeah.
They made it, I mean, they're like comedians, man. I mean, not to say that I was laughing at them, I was laughing with them.
Yeah, for sure.
But they got everybody involved. They got everybody, hey, okay, relax, and okay, we're gonna train today, you know. And we used to do rounds and drills, and when I was teaching at one time, that's kind of the stuff that I used to bring to the table, man. Like I used to make it fun to where like I wanted everybody to come back the next day. We were training. I put them through drills and you know, repetition and hey, we're gonna do this today, and partner drills, and just drill the hell out of them, man. But they put up with it. Yeah. They came back, and of course I was like, sweet, man. But I liked it. I mean, at one point, you know, I think I was only doing 3 days a week, and everybody's like, hey man, let's start doing, you know, we do Saturdays, we do, you know, Sundays, and like you said, man, at that time I was going more towards the gym. I mean, I had, you know, my two daughters, you know, growing up, and I probably paid too much attention to the training, you know. But I mean, I always made time for my kids, of course. But yeah, it came to the point to where I was just like, yeah, I gotta go teach. And then I was still going to work. I was working at the post office overnight, and so that gave me that ability to teach early in the day. And then, you know, but I liked it, man. And the fact that one of my students actually, Randy Villarreal, he's actually he moved to Dallas. He's actually like a second degree jiu-jitsu guy, and I'm like, cool, man, because that's, you know, the fact that he. Even back then, when I was his first jiu-jitsu guy.
He was part of that journey.
Yeah, and he always brings that up, and I'm like, man, you know what? I'm glad he is where he is. You know, he's a family man. He's got his own gym now. He just picked up a contract with Fury FC, so I'm looking forward to that, man. And at one point, he was like the Iron Man of Texas at that weight class, because he was fighting like every freaking week, basically, what he looked like. And you're fine. And but I liked it, and you know, seeing stuff like that, I'm like, you know what, man? I mean, it motivates me to do more. Yeah, it motivates me to, you know. And I know he was visiting his brother the other day, and I was trying to bring him in here, you know, but it was just timing was off. But you know, stuff like that. I mean, I look forward to, man. I look forward to more. You know, even people later on, whether it's me influencing with this podcast, or then coming in and speaking and you know, using this as an outlet, you know, because that's what it is. But yeah, man, there's a lot of stuff that I used to like. You know, seminars. I mean, of course, you say, you know, with your you know, crew Bob, right? Of course, I mean, you go out there. But have you trained with anybody else that's kind of motivated you more?
You know, I mean, Robert Villegas was definitely my first and major influence, for sure. You know, I got to know Rob on a real personal level, and it was where he would let his guard down, and it was really cool. Rob's the reason I met Bob. You know, he brought Bob down for a Muay Thai seminar, and I remember when I had my first fighter debut on the Legacy Amateur Series. This is back in, I think, 2009 in Dallas.
Ooh, yeah.
I remember he had just got back from his honeymoon, and we were sitting out in front of the cage before the show had started. Just kind of, everybody got their coaches meeting and all that stuff hadn't even happened, and we were just kind of talking and remembering that old seminar and stuff like that. And it's just he's probably been the biggest influence, without a doubt. I've been lucky, but when Bob was working with Michael Corley and they had their gym in Houston Muay Thai,
right.
Corley's lived the life in Thailand. He's fought on major shows. His input, he's actually the guy I asked permission to name start the Corpus Christi Muay Thai program. I think I'm still they're the only one that they was certified as a coach, basically, before they separated gyms. But he's been a major influence. He's the president of the United States Muay Thai team. So, and I've had a guy fight for him at the IFMA, the World Games.
Yeah.
So it's just guys like that. Rudy Valenzuela, who owns Weapons at Hand.
Yeah.
He's cornered me in a couple fights too. It's priceless having people that have helped me like that, and then at the same time now I can go back and, get advice from, or we can talk about the same things that we both have to deal with now as coaches. Yeah. And so it's I've had a lot of people. My dad's probably the biggest influence as a coach. I mean, my dad was a really good baseball coach, a really good communicator with things, and had a really good IQ and feel for the game. And it's just how he's treated people over the years and the respect he's given to people really influenced on how I go about my stuff and how I try to do the same. I mean, I'm definitely not perfect. I've definitely had, my issues with fighters at times. But it's always a good base to go back to realize where I need to be.
Right. Oh, yeah, man. And I mean, by all means, man, because even, like you said, I mean, I know Rudy. I've met Robert, like I said, just through the fight game. I mean, there's a lot, and I mean, I don't know a lot of people personally. I mean, just through the fight game, I mean, I've met people, but I will say this, man. Like when I talk to people, it's not on social media, or it's just on that level to where it's just like people talking.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that watching them coaching and watching them, that's the kind of stuff I look at, because it's just like that one country song, man. It says, "Who are you when I'm not looking?" Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of, it always sticks with me, because I'm like, okay, you know what? You can portray yourself on social media and be like, hey, I'm a funny guy, I'm this and that, and you go home and you're nobody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But when I meet people and I'm like, you know what, man, and I meet them just to be humble, and I see that they're good people in general, and I'm like, you know what, that's what sticks with me, and that's what I always like. Yeah, man, I met that guy. That guy was cool as hell. Just laid back, and a lot of the fighters are like that, man. Everybody thinks, oh man, they fight in the UFC or they fight in the cage, and they're freaking beasts and animals, and not all of them, some of them maybe, but on the other part, I mean, everybody. Like I tell people, man, I mean, people were their sons, they're fathers themselves at one point, of course, they have kids, so it's just, it's mind blowing, because, it's like Fight Club, man. Everybody's on there, Fight Club, the movie, everybody had lawyers, they had doctors, they had
they're normal people.
Yeah.
Like that's the grand scheme, is that they fight in the cage, they may train every day, but the fact is I have people who are never going to fight that train every day.
Yeah.
And that's what inspires me a lot, is I have a lot of students that, work full-time jobs, some in the refineries, some in that industry where they're working 10, 12-hour days, and then they make time to come to the gym, and that's an honor to me. That I respect that so much, because that takes a lot. And these guys have families too, and there's a lot of sacrifice. There's probably more sacrifice that goes into that everyday type thing than it does with a lot of the fighters. And it's almost like you wish some of those guys were the fighters, because that level of commitment sometimes is unfathomable. I mean, it's just, it's an honor to coach people who really, really care about getting better,
right,
being better people.
No, yeah, and I bet even in like where you stand right now, man, because like we said earlier, I mean, there's going to be people that you're going to influence, but at the same time, there's people that are going to influence you. I mean,
My
I'm
students,
sure, yeah,
100%. That's probably one of the biggest influences. I mean, getting an aha moment from somebody and they're like, wow, that's awesome, or man, that changed, that you feel that moment. It's like when you catch that fish and you've been fishing all day.
Oh yeah.
And you haven't caught anything, or you've been surfing all day and you catch that one wave. Same thing in like golf. I'm terrible at it. I keep the greenskeepers employed. But you hit that, you could have a terrible day on the golf course, and on the 18th hole you plate the green on it, and it's like, man, that's awesome. I can't wait to play again.
Yeah.
Even though you're miserable for 17
looking
holes.
at you like, you ain't coming back.
and you know how that feels. It's like, and you see someone experiencing that moment, it just reinforces what you do. It really does.
Oh yeah, man. It's funny you say that, man. I was talking about earlier about Academy Sports, man. We did a couple of golf tournaments because they used to sponsor, and they would ask me, and I don't know how to play at all, man. Like they were like, "Hey, you want to play?" I'm like, "Sure." And there was like always one guy, and I still talk to this dude. Cool guy, man. I've known him for years, but he was a golfer. He was the one that played, and he would take it seriously. He'd always be upset because he'd be like, "Hey, man, y'all behave." You're and we're like having fun with it, and I'm thinking, man, I'd probably give that guy gray hair, man, because. But yeah, man. I mean, I didn't. I worked at the post office. I was a carrier in Devine, Texas, and it was only 2 routes, small town.
I on my route, I used to drive there to get to Uvalde.
Yeah.
That's where some of my family's from too. So yeah.
Yeah, man, and my route, I had the golf course, so I'd go to the cafeteria, I'd go get something to eat, and the owner's like, "Hey man, you want to go hit some balls?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, why not?" So on my route, I would stop and I would go out there and just start swinging, man. I'd miss half of them, but the other ones that I would hit, I'm like, oh, okay, But for that alone, man, I liked it because it's just you and the ball.
Yeah.
Like, it's just you go and you get lost, and I was like, man, you can relax. You don't have to worry about it.
I've rediscovered golf a little bit like that.
Yeah, you know, and that's what I liked about it. I didn't know how to play, but the fact that I would go out there, go to the range, and just hit the ball and see how far I could hit it, and you know, but yeah, man, I might get back into that too, man, because I had fun when I was doing it. I mean, of course, the owner from that golf club, with it's free. Hey, take a bucket and go do your thing, man. But it was good times, man. I'll definitely look into that again, man. That was pretty dope. I like that.
I always say golf's not a sport, it's an art.
Yeah.
Because it's just something else, man. It's something else. I enjoy it, but I'm terrible.
Yeah, same here, man. Same here. Man, hey, I'm going to cut this short, or not even short. We've been here for an hour, man.
Nice.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you for stopping by, man.
Anytime.
And, of course, you are in Corpus Christi. What are some of the plugs that people can look you up at, man?
You can hit up us, on Facebook, Google. We're on Google. We have a pretty good presence on there. We got a website, kosportstraining.com. We're actually, there's a martial arts expo coming up. Basically, it's under the Robert Villegas Foundation. Yes, it's January 22nd at CC Boxing Club. I think we're going to be doing some demonstrations for Muay Thai there. But it's like a $15 ticket, and you get a free meal too.
Yeah.
So it's a steal, and I'm hoping things like that, it's things like that, like this podcast, things that I wish, I want more people to support, because we need this stuff. It's better for the martial arts community, and in reality, martial arts is good for the community.
No, exactly.
So I'm just hoping more things like that, and hopefully we get a good turnout on that. So it's something we can have every year and build off of. No,
for sure. And I know I shared one of their posts, of course, from the Robert Villegas Foundation, man, because it's like you said, it's $15 for food, but it's for a great cause.
Great cause.
I mean, it's a lot. Robert put a lot into just tech, and not just Corpus Christi, but in Texas in general, man. So by all means, man, I appreciate you once again.
Absolutely, thank you for having
everybody out there, man. Kirk Hubble, and this is sPidA. As always, subscribe, follow up, and support. Till next time, follow up.